Okay, and linked to that, I guess, is what you feel about the role of class and change in anarchism. It's no doubt that certainly I think in America there is a tendency in anarchism, in new anarchist thought, to see classes belonging to the past. It really isn't the most relevant loci of change anymore.
How many of those people have worked in your coal mining community, let's say, or on a factory floor, or as data processors in industry? I mean, if those are your jobs, you don't have any problem with class. Right. You know who gives the bosses and who gives the orders and who takes them, and you know why. You understand the capital concentration that lies behind the choice of those who give the orders and those who take the orders. Now, those are class differences. Often some other domain you can say, I don't see them, but enter into the real life of people who live and work in society, and I don't think they have much problem discerning class differences and their significance. There's a huge difference between giving orders and taking.
Yeah. Yes.
And even if it's true that the people who are giving orders are taking them from somewhere else, but that's the nature of totalitarian systems. I mean, it's not the top guy gives the orders to the bottom guy. There's levels of transmission through which orders are taken and given, managerial supervision and decision-making of various kinds, and that creates a whole variety of fundamental class differences. And there are plenty of people who just take the orders, or else starve.
Yeah,
choice.
Sure.
In fact, we see class issues arising all the time. I mean, take, say, real concrete issues. Like one of the very concrete issues right now is what's called outsourcing. Mm-hmm. What attitude should people take toward outsourcing? And they're conflicting values. I mean, first of all, outsourcing is a very misleading term. Outsourcing is internal to totalitarian institutions. I mean, if GM outsources, that means they are transferring jobs to a company, a firm under their control, which is able to escape labor laws, environmental constraints, and so on, and to give them cheap inputs for the next stage of manufacturing. But that's all internal to command economies. So outsourcing is, it's kind of like a pretense. That's something to do with the free market, or doesn't. It doesn't. It has to do with internal workings of command economies. All right, what should our attitude be towards it? I mean, if people here are losing their jobs because you can get a worker at 10% of the cost in, say, India or China, should we be for it or against it? Well, there's arguments both ways. And I think all the arguments are highly misleading because they're accepting a framework that we shouldn't accept. I mean, if you accept the framework that says totalitarian command economies have the right to make these decisions, and the wage levels and working conditions are fixed facts, and then we have to make choices within those assumptions, well, then you can make an argument that poor people here ought to lose their jobs to even poorer people somewhere else, because that increases, economic pie, and you go through the usual story. But why take those assumptions?
Yeah.
I mean, there's other ways of dealing with the problem. For example, rich people here, like people like me, for example, who are on the top few percent of the income ladder, we could cut back our luxurious lifestyles, pay proper taxes, all sorts of things, and I'm not even talking about Bill Gates. I mean, just people who are reasonably privileged. Instead of imposing the burden on the poor here, and say, well, you poor people have to give up your jobs because even poorer people need them over there, we could say, okay, we rich people will give up some small part of our ludicrous luxury and use it to raise living standards and working conditions elsewhere, and to let them have enough capital to develop their own, economy by their own means, and then the issue won't arise. But it's much more convenient to say poor people here ought to pay the burden under the framework of command economy totalitarianism. That's the easy way. But if you think it through, it's certainly not the only.
No,
way.
it's not. No.
And almost every social issue you think about, real one, live one, the ones right on the table,
Sure.
Has these properties.
Right.
We don't have to accept and shouldn't accept the framework of domination of thought and attitude that allows only certain choices to be made. And those choices almost invariably come down to how to put the burden on the poor.
Yes.
That's class warfare.
Yes.
You don't want to call it class, don't use a word, but it's class warfare,
Yes.
even by real nice people like us who think that it's good to help poor workers in China.
Yeah.
But within a framework of class warfare which preserves our own privilege and transfers the cost to the poor here. And these are
Critical.
again
Critical
matters of raising consciousness among very decent people,
Yeah.
our friends.